Hey, Mary, we're on the road. Where are we going?
We're taking a drive, and we're not going to tell you. This is not Name That Road. This is an edition of the History Files. Yay! But there is a little bit of a road trip involved with this program.
Yeah, it usually is. Yeah, we got in the back seat.
Yeah, we've got Zip with us. She was missing her mom because her mom was gallivanting around the planet.
She just felt that I had not been giving her enough time and attention. Plus, she figures that if we have a problem with sheep or birds on the road, she'll that's it.
Okay, good deal. I'm going to turn the camera around, and Nancy's going to fill us in on a little bit of our saga here today.
Yes. And it is a saga because, you know, this should be a show of fun and inspiration. It should make you really feel good. This is a real feel-good show because we're going to be talking about a project out here. We're up in Chimney Rock, up in the very, very top reaches of Bourse Valley, I guess. And we're going to be going up above Bourse Valley. And we're going to look at a project that it has come a long, long way. Originally, when I think it was back in the late 1990s that my two sons and I came out here looking for this old pioneer cemetery that was supposed to be here on top of the ridge. We didn't really know where it was, but we did eventually find it, and pretty overgrown. And then it wasn't until 2019 that you and I did that show.
Yeah, we found it again.
And that was exciting.
And now people in the communities around us were aware of this cemetery.
Yeah, marginally.
But
marginally, yeah.
But nobody really had a pinpoint on it until all of a sudden something changed, and a very, very active member of the independence community decided to take literally the bull by the horns.
Yep.
And restored the property.
So right now we are up here at Kongsberg Cemetery. So let's see what there is to see up here. Okay, you were picturing the man carrying
his child up here. And so I just felt something should be done, and started checking into the history of this area, and also found a book that was published stating that this property was owned by the DNR, and so I thought before I do anything, that's the first step. I need to
find out who owns it, huh?
get some reference if I need, and I talked to some people in the DNR and see if they'd ever had anything surveyed or anything. No. Well, then I went to the Register of Deeds, and actually I have a copy of the original deed from Ulysses S. Grant to Halvor Halvorsen for this property, which is 198 feet east, north to south, and 335 feet east to west. And that deed from Halvor Halvorsen went to the Evangelical Lutheran Kongsberg Church of Burnside and Dover. And I followed up all the way through the last transaction when it went from Larry and Margaret Bouch to the DNR. Every deed listed the exception of this property. Clearly, it never did belong to the DNR.
Okay.
And interesting enough, about 10 years ago, the town chairman said the DNR had contacted them and said they could have this property. And I thought, well, that's nice of them. They never owned it in the first place. So anyway, that was the first step. So
So who does own it then?
The deed is still in the name of the Evangelical Lutheran Kongsberg Church of Burnside and Dover.
And since that doesn't exist, then who does it belong to?
It's going to stay that way.
Okay.
And interesting, Chimney Rock, which we're located in right now, did not exist at that time.
Right, it was part of Burnside,
This was part of Burnside.
Yeah.
Just to the west is Dover.
Right.
In Buffalo County. I don't think this property really extends to Dover, but that's the way the deed is written, and that's the way it's going to stay.
So the deed was from 1879?
1881.
Oh, 1881. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first burials that we can note are 1879.
Uh-huh.
But that doesn't mean the deed was, this might have been transferred before that, but that's when it was first recorded.
And they, like you say, sometimes things didn't get recorded right away because it was a long way into the courthouse.
No, definitely.
Sometimes things took a while.
So, anyway, going back again, so as I came out here, walked along and I stumbled across some stones over here to the south, and I started putting stakes by this stone, and at that time, because this was so overgrown, it seemed like I was putting stakes all over the place. We had no rhyme or reason where they were, until started clearing the area, and then we end up with what you see over here, is clearly the foundation for this church.
And look at it now, it's beautiful with all the flowers.
Well, and I think I showed you that over that map of the berms where it had been plowed, and there were...
they had plowed around it.
Oh, they had plowed around, and with the exception, right over here, these stones, they had actually hit with a plow, and they were under the berm. But the others are where they are, and so...
how did you uncover all these stones? When Mary and I found it, we could just barely see any stones.
That was with a shovel.
Oh boy.
Over on the other side, some of them probably were almost buried 2 feet deep. But they are where they were. And
they're big. How on earth did they move them and get them up here?
Yeah. And, there's been the different stories regarding this church.
Yeah.
I heard, first of all, that the church was built and then it was torn down right away. Well, that really didn't make sense.
No.
Not, and following up, we do know, and that's documented, that the lumber that was up here, and I'm assuming to build that church, went down to Bennett Valley, just in...
just a few miles down the road.
Yeah, by the Trempealeau County, Buffalo County line.
Yeah.
A fellow by the name of John Swanson bought the lumber, took it down, and built a barn.
Okay.
And the lumber is still in that same barn. And there is some writing on some of the lumber, but that was in 1878. Okay.
Oh, okay.
That the barn was built, and that's documented, so we know that took place. And I just found out this spring that my grandfather was baptized in the Kongsberg congregation.
What was his name?
Edison.
Okay.
And that was in 1882.
Okay.
So that clearly tells me he wasn't baptized in a church right here, because this was already, the lumber had already moved. But, I can say you can see here's where the entrance would have been.
Yeah.
And this would have been open, so you can just imagine the view over the
because there
valley
weren't
over
trees
there.
then,
No.
It was
It-
all open.
But yeah, the size of some of these foundation stones, it's just,
That's like, I would love to know where they got them and how they moved them here. What a lot of work. Just getting everything squared up. Wow.
and as it turns out, the Lookout Church, do you know where the Lookout Church?
Sure, on Highway
On 121.
But Lookout Church is down on 93.
No, on 121.
Oh, Lookout. I'm
Lookout.
sorry. Yeah, I was thinking Chimney Rock.
Yeah, Lookout. And I measured that church, the original church, not the additions, were within a foot of the dimensions of this foundation. Almost
Wow.
the same thing.
So it's kind of a standard size.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
anyway, after uncovering this planet, these are all perennial
Oh,
wildflowers.
it's beautiful.
And from what I'm told, next year should be better than the first year.
Well, look at them. You've got
Yeah.
such a beautiful variety here. And
Well,
now, people have wondered about these trees here, but we had Scott Laurie, the retired county forester, came out and kind of gave us an estimation on the age.
at, the first sight, you look at these and you figure, well, they must be 140 years old too,
Yeah.
but they're not,
No.
according to the forester. But you can see over on the side how the trees have grown and actually pushed the foundation.
Yeah.
It's bowed out
Yeah.
on that side. So these have grown since then. Unfortunately, of the three, the one that didn't make it.
Oh.
And so,
But now, why do you know why they didn't continue with building the church?
okay, and I guess a lot of this is just my guess and
Yeah.
some of documentation that I have read about was that Chimney Rock Church on Highway 93,
Right.
they actually had a building per se in 1870 where
Wow.
they started. And there is some references to that congregation consolidating with Kongsberg, with Little Elk Creek, some of
Yeah.
the other churches in the area, which made sense, and that's probably why they did not continue with the building here.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and who knows? There might have been a lot more details,
there's
a lot more drama that went on. We don't know all the
no,
story,
no.
and we probably never will. But
It was,
yeah,
and I keep we're talking about Kongsberg. I think this was collectively called Kongsberg Congregation from this whole area
Uh-huh.
where probably a clergyman came down to somebody's home,
yeah,
and another Sunday or another month, or they would meet at somebody else's home,
right,
and they called this Kongsberg.
yeah. Well,
And this,
a church there's a building, but there's also the people,
The people.
congregation, and the church is the people.
I had heard the reference to the King's Church up here. Well,
Uh-huh.
looking at Norway, there's a town called Kongsberg,
Yeah,
which originally was spelled Koningsberg, which translates to King's Mountain.
right.
And, you know,
That'd be a good name. We are really up on top of not a mountain, but a pretty good sized hill here.
we're at a high point in
Yeah.
Chimney Rock Township, that's for sure.
Now, you were just recently in Norway. Did you go to Kongsberg? And
No, it didn't. I did not have the opportunity to go down there, but next trip.
Okay. So, so they didn't build the church.
I don't think so.
They didn't build the church for one reason or another. And I was thinking, back then, building a church and starting a congregation, a lot of responsibility. You had to get a minister and pay them. You had to pay for the building. You had to heat it. I mean, maybe it just got too complicated for them.
Yeah.
You don't know.
And since there was an existing church,
Yeah.
and I did check into the three other churches besides Chimney Rock closest to where we are in proximity to this area, East Bennett Valley, Evanger, and
Right.
Lookout churches.
There's a lot of Lutheran churches in
Yeah.
a small area here,
Definitely.
really.
And none of them had any records of assuming ownership of this
Yeah,
property, and I think it just kind of dissolved.
yeah.
So,
But what's here where it was the cemetery?
yeah, the cemetery was here, obviously with the burials. And,
So these are the burials that you know of, but there might be more.
I'm going to say definitely more,
Yeah.
based on I mentioned the Bolstead name earlier. John Fleury owns the farm that he bought from Bolstead, and
Go down in the valley.
yeah,
there.
and Gilman Bolstead said his grandmother is buried up here.
Really?
And but we don't know on
What are
mother's side, father's side.
these? What are these stakes?
Future,
mean?
the sign.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that, coming back over here to the cemetery, signage is probably the next project.
Yeah.
Uh,
This is great. When did you do this? With a...
well, I just finished that last week.
Oh, really? Oh, it's
And
beautiful.
just
It
figured
is
the split
so
rail was
nice.
something that
It
was
is.
old looking, and
And how did you decide on these? I say containers, but display for the tombstone.
this stone, well, obviously it broke, and to stand them up really was not going to work.
Yeah.
So I contacted Troy Rabarchik, who in Independence, who works concrete, and I shared with him my thoughts on
Yeah.
displaying.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, Troy builds a prototype of a form, and on top of that, he builds all 6 of these forms.
He made these forms.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
So, is this made out of concrete?
yes.
Oh, it is. I thought it was wood when I first
Yeah,
looked at
no,
it. That's amazing.
Large ones are about 500 pounds, so.
So how did had he seen something like this before, or how did he come up with the idea?
No, I drew up what I
Yeah.
wanted.
Yeah. Well, you knew what it was. Had you seen it before?
No,
Something
I
like
just,
this?
no, I just,
This was,
yeah.
yeah, that's great. Out of your mind.
But he just took it from there, and
ran with it.
And ran with it.
Yeah. It is. I just thought this is such a neat idea. Because
But-
you can read, a couple of these, about
the
three of these?
three of them you can read.
Yeah.
And obviously right now it's dirty. When we get this ground cover to eliminate the dirt being splashed up in here, it's going to be better. But right now it's as it is. So
So this is a burial from 1879, a child. Do we know what the name was? Was it Anna?
yeah, sulfus.
Anna Solfist, who died, she was born 1872 and died 1879, daughter of Peter and Christine Solfist. And there are still Solfists around.
Yeah, and the sulfus, the parents, they homesteaded also down here at the bottom of the hill by where this VM school.
Right, and VM School used to be at the bottom of the hill, kind of, they changed the road, and so I think the road actually goes over where the school actually started.
It curved around the school.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
And there's
So
still-
what are they mounted on? They're mounted on
That's all concrete.
It is.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's all concrete.
And this one, these are children too, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see. This one is 2 children.
Four
Four?
children. 4 children.
Oh, they all died in 1879.
Yeah, they were almost within a few months of each other.
Oh,
Diphtheria.
a terrible epidemic. And if anybody watched some of our previous history files, we talked with Dr. Bert Hodis about diphtheria. A terrible disease, extremely contagious, and what actually happened is their throats would swell up and they would more or less suffocate. But it would take children really fast, high fevers, and there were a couple of really bad diphtheria epidemics that went through this county, especially there was one in the 1880s, and there were parents that lost 5 children in a matter of 2 weeks. I just can't imagine. It's just unimaginable.
Terrible.
And these were the children of Arnie and Barrett Hoff. 4 of them. Oh, my goodness. Wow.
And interesting, this family, they had 2 other children that lived to adulthood
Just 2.
that I know of.
Yeah.
One died in the 1950s.
Oh.
And following up on that, that lady had a daughter who I believe is still living. And found no death record, but I found her 2 sons, their names, and living in Mound, Minnesota. And I called them, left messages, and I'm sure they thought this was some prank call. I mean,
Scam.
Well, talking about a great
Yeah.
aunt from the 1870s.
And
so someday I'm going to drive to Mound, Minnesota. And
so they would be direct descendants of the Hoffs.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. The parents were buried in Osseo.
Okay. Arnie and Barrett.
Yes.
It was just the 4 children.
Right.
Yeah, and they were all, one had been born in 1872, one in 1875, another in 1873, and then 1877, and they all died in 1879. That's just
Sad.
I can't even think about it. I don't know how they could contend with something like that.
And this one
The Viam?
was the last one.
John Herman. Oh, it's in there.
Yeah, it's in there.
Oh,
That's
there it is. Okay.
That's why I'm get some repellent for them. But anyway, this one you couldn't really read at all, and I got a call from a fellow in Mondovi one Sunday night, and he thought, being retired funeral director, I would know where cemeteries are, and he asked me if I knew where the VM cemetery was.
Oh.
And I said, are you talking about the cemetery by the VM school? Yeah.
Oh.
He had no idea that I was doing anything up here. And so I started telling him about this. Well, then it turns out this is relation.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
A direct, was he a Viam?
Well, his name is Preston, but I'd have
okay.
to give you the
Yeah.
breakdown. But yeah, and actually, the Sulfist that lives over by Chimney Rock, his wife was relation to the VMs.
Oh, okay.
So this whole area was,
They were all interconnected.
yeah.
And this John Herman, the son of Ivor and Emma Johnson Viam, only 13 days,
Yeah.
1885. But I like the little poem at the bottom. It says, another star to God has risen,
Our little Johnny.
our little Johnny gone to heaven. Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, boy, this... I just can't imagine the anguish these people would have felt losing these
The
children.
Norwegian inscriptions on the other two, they have that translation too.
Yeah.
It's worded a little differently, but bottom line it says the same.
Yeah. And I know how people say, oh, well, those were just children's graves. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but those were their children. Think about how they loved them and cared for them, and to lose them like that. They were people. Yeah.
This one over here, what I found
Oh, yeah.
many times
nothing, yeah.
would just have some initials on the edge, which I found none.
Just all worn away, you
Yeah,
think?
yeah.
Yeah.
But it was, these stones, this is where I found them.
Yeah.
And the other two basically look like field stones from here.
Oh,
And I would have thought, okay, that's what they are, until
Yeah.
you actually look closer and there's the ribbing on the edges,
oh.
which you wouldn't have found on a field stone.
No.
So I'm, again, assuming that that marked a grave, and there was probably some wooden cross or with the name on it that is long gone.
Yeah, but so they would have had to have brought these tombstones in from like what, the cross or the fair? You would have had to
Oh.
have here. You didn't have a train stopping here.
No.
That would have been something. Just moving them here. And you've planted what, daylilies
Well,
here? Or,
these
or
are lily of the valley.
Yeah, well that'll be perfect.
And
that'll be beautiful.
They will hopefully fill in.
Yeah, they
and
do.
they're hardy,
Yep,
and the deer don't like them.
they're beautiful. I've got
And
them.
well, and they're not going to be high,
No,
so it'll be a ground cover.
yeah,
And that's kind of my goal
yeah,
out here, is that not to have a lawn to mow,
yeah,
which is going to require upkeep. So this will fill in. And out in the other areas, I've planted 200 plugs of vinca,
oh,
which also will spread,
yeah,
but it's very
low growing,
low.
yeah,
Got a little purple flowers.
that's beautiful. Now tell me about this behind us here, because when we were out here doing the drone shot the other day, it almost looked like it was suspended and like it was floating in the air.
John Fleury put that there.
Oh, he did. Oh,
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
The barbed wire was some that we dug up out here. And like I say, over the years, the farmers, they were farming, and here, the barbed wire, they must have had cattle and so forth up around this area. In fact, when we used to climb up, and you must have done it too, from the road,
Yeah.
climbing up, you probably caught your foot on that barbed wire.
It wasn't easy getting up here.
No, it was. So, anyway,
It's so nice here now. It's just peaceful and beautiful, and I mean, it really makes you stop and think about things, what these people, their life was not easy.
oh, I just think of the work that they did,
Yeah.
looking at that foundation. You see on the edge here?
Uh-huh.
So
Oh, yeah,
clearly that was not
Yeah, that was a design,
it
wasn't
would
it?
not have been a field stone.
No.
No.
Well, and it seemed like when the Norwegians, one of the first things they did when they got to a place was they tried to form a congregation of the Lutherans, really. And they like to put their churches on hills, didn't they?
Definitely.
They probably did that in Norway. Or not.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. And they were people that I think they had a great faith, and they really this was something that was extremely important to them to get the hey, Zip, chewing on leaves. Come here, go chase some rabbits or something. Go find some rabbits. Come on.
Oh,
Go do something else. This stencil is beautiful. You put this all up yourself? Oh my goodness, that's a lot of work.
well,
Wow.
it's been therapeutic for me to just be out here.
Oh, this is it's so nice and it's so beautiful compared to what, you know, Mary and I and my boys had found. This is unreal. It's just nice, and I look at, you know, the foundation with all those wildflowers. It's just gorgeous. It's so peaceful.
And we will get after we get some should have got together after I had the signage, and we do have some colored perennials to go in here, but more of the color in the back.
Oh, and you've carefully selected some trees here, right, to let them grow.
Definitely.
Yeah. That is really nice.
Yeah.
Have you been doing a lot of mowing up here?
Well, this summer it's
been pretty
hasn't
dry.
been dry, but yeah. But I have to tell you, after Eric Lawton, who is on our family, the home farm, he totally volunteered to come up here and clear a lot of this area. You know, originally we were going to do it all by hand.
Yeah, oh gosh, you'd still be doing it.
Yeah, but Eric is so great. Came up here and cleared a lot of this, with the exception with a skid steer, and then he pushed the other back with a dozer.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. What a job! Wow.
But then in amongst this area, of course, that needed to be done by hand, and then Patty Kulik, my next door neighbor, she's been a great consultant coming out here and clearing this and eradicating the buckthorn and box elder trees. And
what a job.
But I have to tell you, Doug Yap went by one day on his motorcycle and saw my car. This is last summer. And of course this was all torn up, and he said, well, you're going to have to put some seeding in here to control the erosion. He said, give me a call. Okay, well, I didn't call him. Got toward fall, and Doug said, are you ready for some seed? And I said, yeah. He said, I'll be there tomorrow. And he comes with a food plot disc and a drag and a four-wheeler, and spread what you see here just to
a lot of clover.
Hold it. A lot of clover. Which,
The pollinators love that clover.
Well,
bees and butterflies. And
it's been great. I come out here and you see all the bees and the butterflies over on the wildflowers. That's why the sign down there says the flowers are for the bees. Don't pick them.
Well, I can see butterflies out here, you know, and when working on things, it's so lovely, and it's so nice to see that, because Mary and I in our travels have seen other cemeteries that have been more or less abandoned and neglected, and maybe somebody will watch this and they'll say, yeah, that old one down the road from me, we should do that.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'll still get some more input on somebody that knows something about this history.
Well, it was a time before the internet, and I don't imagine there was a whole lot that went into the newspapers. These people, I'm sure they had very busy everyday lives just trying to make a living. And then on top of it, to be losing children.
It had to be.
That's just so sad.
So that's what's behind this. Not for Keith, but out of respect for those that are buried up here, as well as the ones that we know and we don't know.
And this was a time before the DNR owned a lot of this land up here, so it was all being used, I guess.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I even have aerial shots from the 1930s.
Oh, yeah?
Of the area.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, things changed. I mean, this was one of the last parts of the county that people came in and bought land. And probably because it was kind of remote and kind of wet and hilly, maybe not ultimately the best farmland. But back in the day when you were using horses or oxen or whatever, you could.
Yeah, but Norwegians were kind of known for going from the hills in
It's
Norway
true.
and looking for hills in Trempealeau County.
Well, my grandmother always said that the Norwegians, she wasn't Norwegian, she said the Norwegians liked the hills because it was easier to dig a well.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe she didn't know what she was talking about.
Uh,
Or there'd be springs or something out of the sides of the hills. So anyway, they were really hard workers, weren't they?
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I go to Fagernes Church, and that congregation was established in 1868. And of course, first, like you say, they met in people's homes, and they got a pastor to come over from Trempealeau Valley, and finally they built the church. I think it was in the 1870s. But the same story. One of the first things they did when they got their land was they formed a congregation and planned for a church.
Yeah, you can, within 10 miles of where we are right now,
Yeah.
there's 1, 2, 3, 4 churches.
Well,
Besides what
yeah.
was proposed for
Yeah.
this place.
Well, there's Bennett Valley, and then at the end there's Good Shepherd,
Yeah.
right? And
It's
then there was Evanger and Lookout
in Chimney Rock.
and Chimney Rock. And yeah, that's a lot of Lutheran churches in a small area. Must have been a lot of Norwegians.
I think so.
Oh, this is just beautiful. You know what I think it needs is a bench. I'll give you some money toward a bench. So you can come out here and sit and reflect.
Well, I've done that out here
Oh, I'm sure.
without a bench.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're planning, hopefully this fall, after you get some signage up here, and maybe have some kind of dedication
Yeah.
together.
Well, I think
People knew about this. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I think anybody that went to the VM school
Sure.
knew about this cemetery
Yeah.
up here and walked up the hill.
Yeah, it was just right down at the base of the
Base
hill.
of the hill, yeah. But I've talked to many people that never knew anything about this church foundation.
Huh.
And going back to Lucille Coolig, her
Yeah.
grandfather never talked about a church building per
No.
se. And the Swanson that got the lumber, and that he had passed on the story as well, that the lumber was here to build but never built. So,
Yeah.
and that just
Yeah, it's to me it's kind of makes you wonder. I mean, they had gone to all the
Oh.
work to put up the foundation and get the lumber, and then they decided no.
But again, with that diphtheria,
Yeah.
I think they probably some of these families left the area.
Yeah.
Like I say, on the Huffs, those they are buried in the Osseo Cemetery, so
Yeah.
they had left the area. Yeah.
Do you think some of them went down to join the church in Upper Bennett Valley?
Oh yeah,
Possibly?
definitely.
Yeah.
And we know the Sulphus, the ties to the Lookout Church
Uh-huh.
are there.
Yeah.
And the Johnson VM, that they have gone more to Mondovi, Buffalo County.
Yep. Because we're pretty close to the county line here.
We are
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is,
Just amazing. So much work, and it was so generous of Mr. Lawton to do what he did.
oh yeah, it was.
What a task
Well-
that would have been otherwise.
He tremendous help,
Boy, I guess so.
and that was just well, the volunteers, the ones that I've Eric Lawton and Patty Coolig
Uh-huh.
and Doug Yap and with Troy Robarczyk, I mean they just
Yeah.
came forward and volunteered to do this. And,
Even though they didn't have any connection,
yeah,
probably.
yeah.
I mean, familiar anyway. That's Well, that's the thing about people in this county. We got some pretty good people here,
I think
don't
you're absolutely correct. But you know, I've read, like I say, some things that are published that we know are not true.
we? Well,
but
that happens.
it happens. It
Yeah.
was told, and definitely it does not belong to the DNR.
And I heard that somebody had told me a long time ago that the DNR, I think they thought they owned this, and they didn't want to do anything because they were afraid that it was going to be vandalized. And at that time, I thought, what was there to vandalize? You know, it was all growing up. You hardly knew those stones were there. But yeah, there was people that didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
Now, Zip, come here. Don't be so nosy. We can wrap this up.
Yeah.
Well, Zip, come here. Zip. She does not listen to me. Zip, come on. Come on. Thank you so much for taking the time out.
No, glad to do it. Enjoy sharing the stories about Kongsberg. And
So if somebody wants to make a donation, or where should they contact?
let's just say I haven't accepted any donations. As long as I'm able to do what I'm doing, I'm going to keep on doing it that way. But I will give you a telephone number.
Okay, and I'll put that on at the end of the show.
Not for donations, but they can have, if they have some information. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
some information on Kongsberg Congregation, Kongsberg Cemetery. Number is 715-530-0615.
Okay, that's great. So thank you very much for giving us this wonderful tour out here.
Thank you for finding your way out to Kongsberg
again. This is inspirational. Yay! Good. Thank you. That was really, really interesting. So this has been a story of the restoration of Kongsberg Cemetery by Keith Edison. And it's the children in those graves, those very old graves, are no longer abandoned in the woods. It's been made into a beautiful spot. And now we're going to share with you some video that we made about Kongsberg quite a while ago. In 1993, I had gone looking for this cemetery with my two boys. I had heard that there was an old pioneer cemetery on top of the ridge above where VM School had been. And we had to look for a while, but we did find it. It was very overgrown. But then in 2019, Mary Anderson and I went back out and looked again and shot a whole video of that in our experience. And it was even more overgrown than back when my boys and I had gone there in about 1993. So I'll give you a little look at both of those videos that we shot so you can see what a great undertaking it was for Keith and his friends to clear that property and restore it to something beautiful, and to no longer have those little children's graves abandoned in the woods. Search for the old cemetery somewhere up on top of County V above Borst Valley. Our directions aren't that good. We were supposed to go to the top of the hill, and at the highest point we were supposed to find maybe a tombstone leaning up against a tree. So my two boys and I have been going up and down this road. Most of it now is public hunting land owned by the DNR. And we've been walking around in the woods looking for tombstone. Well, my boys just yelled and said, "We found it, we found it." And so the dog and I were running over here to check it out. It means going up a bank into these trees. Very little is known about this cemetery.
I only read about it in a book that listed the cemeteries of Trempealeau County, and this one was recorded quite a few years ago, back in the 80s, and simply said it was on the highest point of the hill on V, the road going from Forest Valley over into Upper Bennett Valley. All right, this is the area in the trees that the boys have claimed that they have found the stones. So this must be the highest point of the ridge, to go and see what they found out. Into the trees, we have found several old stones. The first one that they pointed out, it's a two-piece stone. It could be simply the base to another tombstone. We can't find any writing on it, although these stones look to be very old. Maybe there was some writing on them at one time, and by now it's been worn away. Quite close to these two stones, we find two more. They're leaned up against a small tree. The one that I'm looking at directly in front of me says John Herman, son of Ivor and Emma Johnson Viam, died December 27th, 1885, age 13 days. So this is one of those depressing child graves that we see so often in these old pioneer cemeteries. This is quite a large stone. It's a double one. And in investigating what it says on it, we feel that this is maybe a family burial stone, that there were perhaps both parents and two children buried here. Of course, we have no way of knowing the place where the stones are now, if that indicates where the actual people were buried. But certainly nobody has been in this burial spot for many, many years. So I have been told by Reuben Gunderson and my neighbor Gary Everson that they had heard that there had been a small church, a Lutheran church here called Kongsberg. I looked in my 1917 history of Trempealeau County, and they did mention a Kongsberg church. It was supposedly 10 miles south of Hamlin, so this would be at approximately this could be Kongsberg. The date and the information given in the book said that it was founded in 1879, and then there was a question mark after that. So apparently that was all the information that the author of the history book had on the Kongsberg congregation. I would have no idea where the name Kongsberg came from or any more information about this particular church, if this is indeed the remnants of the Kongsberg church and its cemetery. Go ahead and show me further. I read some more of this writing there.
They always look for funny B-roll.
Oh, here we are. Mary C. Anderson, my accomplice. I'm Nancy Bergman, and we're here for another session of History Files on the road.
On the road, we're taking the History Files out to Chimney Rock Township.
That's right. Kind of an exciting, mysterious place.
It is. It is. It's a beautiful part of Trempealeau County, and we are going to explore what today?
Well, on top of the hill above, I guess it's technically what, Forest Valley out
Forest
there?
Valley, yes.
Okay, one of the upper reaches of it. There's an old cemetery, and gosh, it must have been at least 20 years ago when my kids were like, small. We went out there and shot a show because there's this little pioneer cemetery up there kind of in the weeds, and I thought, well, it might be a good day to go back up and see if it's still there.
I think that's a very good idea.
All right, we are approaching County V. We're on 121, and we're coming up to what used to be the little village of Russell. And there was a store here and a schoolhouse, and on the opposite side of the road from the store, there at one time there was a cheese factory. Got to go down this way, as I recall. There'll be some blackberries sooner or later. All right, now this is what I remember from before, is we had to get back up into this little grove of oak trees and things here at the end of a field. So the important thing here is to not fall in the ditch. Number one, importance. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that this is where we went before. And there's not like there's a beautiful path or anything up here. I think we just have to kind of plow our way through the brush. But there is a drop off here, Mary, so do not fall in. Ah!
Like taking a walk in the jungle.
It is. I hope we don't stir up any bears.
There are bears out here, you know.
I know. This is bear habitat here. Especially with all these berries, you know, that's what they like. Let's see. Gotta get over here. I'm glad you're still there and you didn't fall in the ditch. What have I gotten myself into here? This is a lot worse than I recall.
It's usually like at this point in our wild adventure movies, I wonder, does Nancy know where she's going?
Well, I think so. I haven't been up here for a long time. And the last time I was here, it wasn't in very good shape. So I guess it hasn't. Yeah, we're here. We're here. I see it now. It has not been improved.
By golly, Nancy did not take us on a wild goose chase.
Yes, it's still here. That's good. So back here in the trees in this grove, you can see that I'm not even sure where the actual burial spot is because the stone is leaned up against the tree. And about all you can read on it, it's in Norwegian, and the name on it is Solfest. And here's another stone down here. I don't recall this as ever being readable anymore either. And this looks like this was the base, maybe. And then here's another one. And I can't read the names on them anymore. But it seems to me that some of them were the graves of children. And so you ask, you know, why are they here in this grove? Because as you can see by the shape and size of these trees, there hasn't been any maintenance done here for a long time.
It feels like 1889.
These stones just didn't weather well. Stuff grows on them, you know, after a while, and you just...
And that's how they can actually age stuff in a cemetery.
Yes, by
the age of the mosses.
Ah, well, that makes sense.
That grow on the stones.
Now there used to be just another small one, but maybe that's lost to nature. But this is what I've been able to find out about it. I thought that this property was owned by the DNR. And according to Wisconsin statutes, if there is a site for human burials, you know, where there's human remains, that technically if it's abandoned, then the town is supposed to do the upkeep. But some towns do. Town of Arcadia has some
pioneer cemeteries that they mow all the time, and town of Burnside does as well. You know, they're very well kept. But up here, way up here in Chimney Rock, I guess this isn't, well, it's a matter of ownership, because when I went in and started researching it at the Register of Deeds, I thought this was on DNR property, which DNR property is here, but it's a little farther here off to my left, which would be kind of the northwest. And it turns out that this is actually owned by a non-existent church synod, or whatever you want to call it, congregation. Now, I had found at one time what looked like to be, well, a foundation of a small building here that was probably the church. And the record said that there had been a very small church here at once. So that's probably what I found. Whether I can find it back again, that's another story. So it wasn't a big cemetery, but you can see where it's kind of been leveled off here. And there's probably more burials in here than what we've seen, you know, the stones over there. As I recall, somebody had read them at one time, and they were the stones for children that had died. And nowadays, you know, it's so tragic to have a baby die, and it's pretty unusual. But back in the pioneer days, it was really pretty common to lose a child. Nobody's taking care of this, and I guess it's just going to go back to nature here pretty soon. I think it's right over in here.
Well, there's stones.
Yeah, and kind of a depression, like, you know, maybe dug something out. So I think this is where there was a small building, wasn't very big, and supposedly this was the Kongsberg church. What is it?
Something.
Ah!
Crawled in my...
Something ate her shoe! Oh no!
Something crawled through my toes.
Oh!
Gave me the willies.
Oh! Well, at least we know it wasn't a bear. Old Hawkeye!
There we go. Now we just got to safely traverse the cliff and the chasm.
That's right.